It was another night of protests in Iran's capital city of Tehran, with over 1 million people in the streets as President Trump issued a threat against the Revolutionary Guard, saying they're in big trouble. I think they behaved badly. Help is on the way. After this tweet, the IDF is raising the alert levels in various arenas, preparing for attacks by Iran's proxies and for scenarios of an American strike, including the arrival of aircraft carriers and heavy bombers to the region. Many countries have called on their citizens to leave Iran, and President Trump also noted that it's a good idea for Americans to leave after he was asked what he meant when he told protesters help is on the way, and replied, "You'll find out soon enough." The assessment is that he has decided to intervene, but the scope of the response and its timing are still unknown. This is what it appears that Saudi Arabia and other countries in this region are pressuring the United States to avoid striking Iran. Welcome to Boots on the Ground. I'm your host Yair Pinto, bringing you the whole truth about what's happening in Israel. In the last 24 hours, the massive protests in Iran against the Revolutionary Guards continued. An Iranian human rights organization reported that 16,784 protesters have been arrested so far, while Israeli intelligence assesses that there have already been more than 4,000 fatalities. This number includes hundreds of regime personnel who were apparently hit by protesters who were armed through foreign elements. As the rial, the currency of Iran, collapses and the protests in Iran expand, President Trump declared that a 25% tariff will be imposed on any country that continues to do business with Iran, including China, the United Arab Emirates, and Turkey. But the main event, a kinetic attack against Iran's military, is now a question of when. The IDF's Home Front Command has not changed the preparedness status for the civilian population, but the Air Force, military intelligence, and Northern Command are at a high level of alert, and cooperation is taking place with the United States Central Command. It is widely understood that the protesters cannot take down the regime without help, and at least at this stage, they are far from toppling the regime, but we know that with President Trump's, everything can change in an instant. Later in this report, TBN Israel's senior Middle East analyst Mati Shoshani will bring us all the possible scenarios for what might happen next. And meanwhile, in the Gaza Strip, Hamas has begun a process to choose a new leader and deputy in place of Yahya Sinwar and Salah El-Aruri, who were eliminated during the war. Leading candidates in Qatar are fighting for control of the organization, while Israel holds half of the Gaza Strip as the American ceasefire plan demands full disarmament. We will bring you all the details. In the northern arena, Lebanese Foreign Minister Yosef Raji said in an interview this week that as long as Hezbollah holds weapons, the ceasefire agreement allows Israel to strike. The minister even addressed Hezbollah Secretary General Naim Qassem, declaring that the weapons are a burden and do not protect the state. So why has Hezbollah still not been disarmed? And is the IDF heading toward a final elimination campaign against this terrorist organization? For their part, Hezbollah issued an official statement this week in support of pro-regime demonstrations in Tehran, while accusing the West of direct involvement in an attempt to destabilize the country. So we have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, with me today is Mati Shoshani, and this is your Boots on the Ground report, bringing you the whole truth about what's happening in Israel on day 830 of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shia militias in Iraq, and all the other armed groups in this region that are taking their orders from Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps, which is the head of the crumbling axis of evil in the Middle East. In the last 24 hours, the streets were burning once more as masses poured into the main arteries, and footage leaked on social media networks despite severe blockages. In various hotspots across the capital, security forces were seen deploying in large numbers, attempting to push protesters into the alleyways and disperse them by force. This was not just another night of protests, but another step up in a bloody struggle that puts the entire Middle East on standby. Yes, it's no longer only about Iran. The moment the question shifts from what's happening in the streets to what will the United States do, the whole region shifts gears. Israel is moving into a defensive posture, not because there is certainty of an immediate attack, but because if there is an American decision, the Iranian response can come fast through the proxies or through a direct Iranian move, and no one, not even in Washington, is signaling a sealed plan right now. Back in Iran, one thing stands out: the numbers. The Ayatollah regime has officially admitted that at least 3,000 people have lost their lives in the wave of protests, while Israeli intelligence estimates that the real number is much higher, while opposition figures outside of Iran are talking about as many as 12,000 fatalities. That gap can be closed right now, mainly because the regime continues to impose an internet shutdown, and the communication blocks makes it very difficult to understand what really is happening on the ground. And the isolation of cities and regions are preventing protesters from coordinating and from passing information outwards. On Wednesday morning, the blackout was eased slightly, and residents were able for the first time to call abroad, reporting an increased presence of security forces in Tehran and an unusual order to open the bazaar shops to create the appearance of normalcy. However, alongside suppression in the streets, there is also suppression through the judicial system. A human rights organization reported 16,784 detainees so far, including 26-year-old Afan Sultani, who was arrested only on Thursday and has already been convicted, with the family receiving notice that the execution is supposed to be as soon as tomorrow. These are the kind of events that raise the pressure level in Washington and propel the story beyond the headlines. And this is where President Trump comes in. He's no longer speaking like someone calming the things down. In a post this week, he announced that he canceled the meetings with Iranian officials, called on protesters to keep protesting and to hold the institutions in their hands, and added that the sentence that shook the entire system was "help is on the way." When asked what help means, he said, "You'll find out soon enough." He also said it's a good idea that Americans leave Iran. In parallel, the State Department called on US citizens to leave now and to consider exiting overland to Turkey or to Armenia if it is safe. The Iranian response did not take long, as the regime continues to present a narrative of these protests being driven by outside elements, particularly American and Israel. On Tuesday, this was intensified with an official statement about the seizure of electronic items for purposes of espionage and sabotage, with a claim that the equipment was meant to enable communication in places without network coverage. It's a double message, both justification for the crackdown and an attempt to frighten the public with the prospect of a foreign hand that gives a reason to tighten the measures. And meanwhile, President Trump announced a 25% tariff on any country that continues to do business with Iran. And that threat connects directly to the internal picture, because the Iranian real, the currency, is crashing, with annual inflation of 52.6%. This is not only a problem for the Ayatollah regime, but also for major trading partners, chiefly China, and also the United Arab Emirates and Turkey. And amidst all of this, the United States has warned Gulf states to be ready for a military strike, but Saudi Arabia and additional states are pressuring Washington to avoid a step that would shake the region. But Europe is also beginning to raise its voice, with several governments condemning the regime's violent crackdown and the EU considering designating the IRGC as a terrorist organization. Meanwhile, Israeli officials say that they do not know what kind of action the American president will choose. There is one option of faster and more symbolic strikes against the regime targets or military facilities without going deep into the core of the ballistic missiles array. But then, there is another option, to go in heavy. That would require the United States to build a force between 2 and 3 aircraft carriers to the Arabian Gulf and the Mediterranean Sea, and the transfer of heavy bombers to bases in this region, along with air defense units and other assets. This is a move that requires days of preparations, and therefore, this scenario, if it happens, does not appear likely before the end of the coming weekend or the beginning of next week. However, Israel is not waiting for further clarity on this point, but has already shifted into a state of heightened alert. The Air Force, the military intelligence, and the Northern Command are on high alert, and there is cooperation with the United States Central Command. And at this stage, at least officially, there is no change in the home front guidance for us, the citizens of Israel, and the public is asked to continue with its routine. But the preparations are expanding, both against the possibility of proxy activation and against surprise scenarios. The IDF spokesperson, Brigadier General Efi Defrin, issued a clear message on Tuesday evening against rumors, saying the IDF is prepared in defense, on alert for surprise scenarios if required, and the protesters in Iran are an internal Iranian matter, with a promise to update if there is any kind of change. However, it's important for you to understand the background, because in recent months Israel has been preparing for another confrontation with Iran and with Hezbollah against the backdrop of an arms race that especially emphasizes the ballistical arena. This week, with the launch of the Nufa Hoshen, a multi-year plan, it was said that in the coming year the IDF is operating force and it's building operational plans in all the arenas. It's one sentence, but it explained the mindset. The system is not waiting for surprise to arrive. It is preparing in advance. In a moment, TBN Israel's senior Middle East analyst Mati Shoshani will explore the possible scenarios that are present in the current state of uncertainty. So keep spreading the truth, share, and follow us. And most importantly, don't forget to press that subscribe button so that you stay tuned to the truth in real time and never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. Speaking of boots on the ground, I want to talk to you for just a moment about what it is like living in Israel right now. For many Israelis, it's still about balancing reserve duty, work, and family, because when you come home and you take off your uniform, life doesn't slow down. I know that feeling. I've come back from reserves trying to be present at home, catch up at work, and still feeling completely drained. So, as this new year begins, I made a New Year's resolution not to do more, but to take better care of my health so that I can actually show up for the people who depend on me. And that's a decision that any of us can make going into the new year. That's why I'm using Vinia. It's an Israeli supplement made from red grape cells that help support healthy blood flow to the heart, brain, and to the muscles. For me, that meant better focus, steadier energy, and fewer days of feeling foggy or burnt out. I started using Vinia during my reserve duty back in 2023, and I'm still taking it today. So if you're thinking about a New Year's resolution that you can actually keep, taking care of your health is a good place to start. You can learn more at viniatbnisrael.com or call 800-638-1944. Faith helps me stay grounded. Vinia helps me keep up. Now, we're getting back into the news because the picture today in Iran is clear. The country is burning from within, and the United States is sending powerful signals from the outside world without yet revealing exactly what it intends to do and when. Now we pass the baton to TBN Israel's senior Middle East analyst Mati Shoshani, who will give us all the possible scenarios from here in Jerusalem. What could happen if there is a United States strike, and what could happen if there isn't? Over to you, Mati.
Right now in Israel, the mood is simple. High anxiety, low certainty, and that combination is incredibly dangerous. We're hearing very strong signals from Washington. We're hearing loud threats from Tehran, and we're watching protests inside Iran with the regime trying to shut the country's voice down by cutting out all communication. But here's the key point. Behind the headlines, the professional picture is more cautious. There are no clear signs right now that Iran is preparing to strike Israel immediately, and Israel is not sitting inside a confirmed American plan. If a US move comes, the expectation is Israel will be updated close to the moment of the attack. So tonight, we're not doing panic, we're doing reality. What's likely, what is possible, and what could change in a single hour, because with President Trump, it can flip very, very fast. So let's dive into everything that's happening in the Middle East when it relates to Iran and the imminent overthrow of the government, God willing, in that country, and what it means for Israel and what it means for the Middle East. We'll start with the biggest headline. Is the US going to attack in Iran? And that question rises up because President Trump has tweeted several times, has said publicly, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, has said several times, this might be coming. The US will send help, those are their words, not mine, to help the people in Iran. They've cautioned the Iranian government time and time again against the violence that they've been using against their people and threatening to take actual action against the people within Iran. And if that happens, well, what does that look like? Is that an American attack that's going to come on the ground in Iran? Are we looking at another airstrike? Or is this more a public threat with an attempt to do something different? To use pressure, to use diplomatic levers, to use more sanctions to really pressure the Iranian Islamic regime. So let's take a couple of minutes and break all of this down, because this is the most important thing that's happening in the world right now. So first, a backdrop. Iran has been in a very substantial wave of demonstrations for weeks now. And ever since these demonstrations broke out, the US has been warning them, don't use violence against your people. They caution them, if you use too much violence, if you hurt your people, we will intervene. The Iranian Islamic Republic, of course, hates those kind of statements and has pushed back strongly and publicly against any kind of American intervention, claiming that it's a violation of international law and the usual jargon that they use on these topics. But what's really going to happen? Where is this really going? So let's break down the facts and then separate the facts from fiction and from what we're hoping will happen. So number one, has the US already intervened with what's happening on the ground in Iran? Well, let me tell you something. The fact that these demonstrations have reached this size, this caliber, and the fact that they include elements from without or throughout Iranian society, well, that has to do with what the US and Israel, by extension, have been doing in Iran already. Operation Midnight Hammer, or Rising Lion, as Israel called it back in June, that's one of the triggers to what we're watching right now in Iran. The regime has been weakened, both publicly, externally, and internally. They've been shown to be less powerful than what people imagined, to have less of a grip both on internal security, but specifically on external powers. And that projection of power loss that they've experienced, that's part of the backdrop to the demonstrations that we're watching right now. But not only that, also the sanctions have been taking effect. They were the ones that were imposed by the United States-led coalition against the Iranians. So that too has already happened. Then there's an incredible amount of diplomatic pressure that the US has been carrying against the Iranians for years now. So to say America will get involved is ignoring the fact that we've already seen a very major involvement of the US government over multiple years in what's happening on the ground in Iran. And it escalates. In recent weeks and months, the United States has been very clear in its support of the son of the Shah, Reza Pahlavi, who's been a candidate to replace the government inside Iran. Again, reminding you, this is a son of a leader that was thrown out when the Islamic Revolution took place in 78, 79, the Islamic Revolution that still controls that country 47 years later. This is the son of the man who was overthrown by Khamenei's people, by the same movement itself that now holds power in Iran. So it's almost natural that he's being propped up by the United States, several other Western countries, as a replacement. Well, let's get to the question of military action, because I think this is what everyone's waiting to see if it happens. When President Trump and the Trump White House say, help is on the way to the Iranian people, well, what do they mean? What does that mean for the people in Iran? So let's break it down. First of all, the United States has already been helping with intelligence, it's already been helping with assets, and it's already been helping on the, let's call it the propaganda and PR side of events. But are we going to see military action on the ground in Iran? So this could go one of a few ways. Number one is, yes, we might see an immediate and a full-scale American strike on Iranian targets. I don't think it's going to be a land invasion, but possibly, and again, this is all rumors and speculation at this point, it could be a combination of an airstrike, like the one we saw back in June, combined with special forces operations that would eliminate key targets and possibly key figures within Iranian society. Where did we see that happen? Well, just the other week in America's backyard in Venezuela. So to say that the US is reluctant to use foreign power and to flex its foreign power muscle, Well, that would be a very, very false statement, because we've seen them do exactly that repeatedly in recent weeks and in recent years. So that's one option. The US strikes deep within Iran, a combination of an airstrike together with a special operator, a special operations mission that would eliminate key targets inside Iran, both figures and specific strategic targets. That could be the tipping point. But it could be something else. We could also see a very limited action by the American government against the Iranian government. Maybe a very limited airstrike. Maybe a naval siege on targets within the country, closing off the ports, closing off the airspace, possibly. That too is something that could happen. But there's another option that's on the table that I don't think many people have talked about, which is going back to Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah. What about bringing him back? The United States has done this not in my lifetime, but in past lifetimes. They've done that. They've overthrown one dictatorial government to replace it with what was presented or perceived to be a better leadership. Why not support the man who could be the next leader of Iran? Bring him back onto the ground in Iran. Support him financially, support his supporters with weaponry. That could happen. That is too an option. But there's one more thing here. And the other option is that the Iranians are the ones who strike. I mean, we're talking about what the Americans will do, what the Trump White House will do. But what if the Iranians strike? What if the Iranians are the ones who carry out a preemptive attack against Israeli perceived enemies or American targets in the Middle East, triggering a response where the United States and Israel have to fight inside of Iran? Is that possible? Absolutely. Because the Iranians have been telling us that they're planning to do exactly that. They've set up this entire event, this entire wave of demonstrations, as a foreign event taking place on their soil. They keep talking about the foreign powers that are trying to manipulate Iranian politics, about Israel, about the United States. They claim that all the demonstrators, the protesters, it's all funded, backed, and promoted by foreign entities, and therefore must be treated as such. And they're saying, this is not me saying this is them saying it repeatedly, that they're going to use their force, their military power, to retaliate against what they see as a foreign intervention in their country. What does that mean? Does that mean that they're going to use a proxy in the region? Maybe the Houthis once again. Maybe they'll fire ballistic missiles once again against Israel to try to divert attention, and by extension, trigger a response that Israel and the United States must carry out to stop the attack against them. And by doing that, cause a state of national emergency, etc., stopping the demonstrations on the ground in Iran. That too is an option. So let's recap. We could see a strike by American forces in Iran. We could see a very limited strike by American forces. We could see them help Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah, to come back to power in Iran, or directly or indirectly, by power, by manipulation, by politics. By the way, in my opinion, that's already happened. And another thing could be is that we never even get to that point, and the Iranians will be the one that would issue the attack against Israel or American targets in the region, or both at the same time, by that forcing Israel and the United States to retaliate, and they get the same win. The win is that foreign entities try to stop Iran, and they have now another enemy to divert attention towards.
Thank you very much, Mati Shoshani, for bringing your usual clarity to these vitally important issues. Now, to you at home, I want to invite you to keep spreading the truth, share, and also follow us, and most importantly, become ambassadors of the truth. Now we're switching our focus to events in the Gaza Strip, where we are now entering a stage where the central question is Hamas's disarmament. This is no longer only a ceasefire on paper, but a daily test on the ground. Is Hamas truly stopping its use of force, the placement of its cells, and attempts to generate friction with our forces? In the past 24 hours, we saw exactly the opposite picture. Overnight, between Tuesday and Wednesday, in the area west of Rafah, an unusual incident deployed that illustrated just how much capability and initiative the organization still holds. It started around 6:15 in the evening, when IDF observation posts identified 6 armed terrorists trying to exploit the weather and the rain to move near our forces. Within minutes, armored forces from the brigade combat team of the 7th Brigade arrived at the point and opened fire towards the area where the cell was last observed. The terrorists returned fire, and the incident continued for several hours. According to field assessments, 2 terrorists were eliminated, and amongst other forces, there are 2 lightly wounded from Sharpeville. The Air Force was scrambled and is providing close aerial support with strikes in the area to close the loop quickly and not allow the cell to melt into the terrain. The operational point here is critical, as according to the operational description delivered about the incident, the terrorists emerged from a tunnel and some of them returned into it. That brings us back to the fact that underground infrastructure still exists and dozens of tunnels still cross the yellow line, meaning they enable movement, surprise, and friction even in places where it seems that the area is already under the IDF's control. In parallel to the military pressure and the demand for disarmament, Hamas itself is trying to create governmental continuity and has begun a covert process to choose a head of the political bureau and his deputy in place of Yahya Sinwar, who led the October 7th massacre and was eliminated by the IDF in late 2024. The vote to appoint a successor is being conducted secretly in the Shura Council, a body of 50 members in Gaza and abroad. The two prominent names of leadership are Khalil al-Khaya and Khaled Mashal, both based in Qatar, and in parallel, a deputy is also expected to be chosen in place of Salah el-Aruri, who was eliminated in January 2024. This is the big challenge for Hamas right now. On the one hand, the demand in Phase B is disarmament. On the other hand, the organization is acting as if it is choosing leadership in order to continue the same line. On the ground, that means one thing: as long as Hamas keeps its weapons, violence will be part of the fabric of the daily life in the Gaza Strip as far as the eye can see. And here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development, so keep spreading the truth, share, follow us, and most importantly, do not forget that this is a spiritual war, and the enemy is using anti-Semitic propaganda and lies that are spread against Israel all over the world. We need your help in sharing the truth and in praying. Now, we're shifting our focus to the northern arena. On Sunday, the Israeli Air Force operated openly in southern Lebanon with strikes in 7 areas, including launches of about 30 heavy munitions, and the targets were Hezbollah munitions and missile warehouses. But this is not just another round, but rather an effort to seriously degrade Hezbollah's capabilities. The fewer stockpiles they have, the fewer daily launches they can fire at Israel, and that brings down the immediate threat to the Israeli home front. But alongside the offensive strikes, the IDF is on alert in defense. The Air Defense Array is in full deployment, and the Home Front Command carried out preparations, but as of now, with no change in the guidelines to the public. The reason for these preparations is clear. After Iran's humiliation in the 12-day war and against the backdrop of protests against the regime in Tehran, the Ayatollah regime may try to activate the proxies to restore a picture of power in this region, and this includes Hezbollah, the Houthis, and additional possibilities from Syria or from Iraq. That brings us to Hezbollah's official response to the protests in Iran. The organization chooses to stand with the regime, talk about millions who support the government, and accuse the West of direct involvement. Their message is simple: this is not an internal protest, but a conspiracy. They also claim that small groups are turning the protests into destruction and chaos. It's the same language that tries to turn civic rage into an external threat, just justify a heavy hand and to protect the Axis. However, in Lebanon, there is a new development, as Foreign Minister Yosef Raji said publicly this week that Hezbollah's weapons outside the state control have become a burden on Lebanon and on the Shiite community. He also said that the ceasefire arrangement that went into effect in November 2024 did not speak only about the cessation of actions, but about dismantling the military framework and the weapons, and that as long as this does not happen, it allows Israel to continue to strike under the agreement. From his perspective, economic aid and investor confidence are also directly tied to concentrating the weapons in the hands of the state. Hezbollah was furious at this statement, with senior officials Ghaleb Abu Zainab claiming that Raji is justifying harm to Lebanese and filling the role of the Israeli foreign minister, while demanding that the president and the government condemn it because silence, in his view, is agreement and service to the enemy. To take a brief comment of my own about all of this, it seems to me that the Foreign Minister Yosef Raji simply told the truth, what everyone knows is the truth. But Hezbollah, like their masters in the IRGC of Iran, is an organization which runs on lies and deceit, the way an automobile runs on gasoline. It is the worst thing imaginable for such a people when someone openly tells the truth, and that's what they're really angry about. In any case, Hezbollah is closing ranks around Iran, but inside Lebanon itself, voices are beginning to be heard loudly saying that Hezbollah's weapons don't protect the people of Lebanon. They're only serving the interests of Iran's Ayatollah regime. The question is whether Lebanon will truly try to dismantle this equation or continue to let Hezbollah hold the state hostage. I don't know the answer to that question, but now we'll move to an interview that TBN Israel director Samuel Smadja recently conducted at our studio in Jerusalem. So, this interview was between Samuel and Mike Gallagher. So over to you, Samuel.
Thank you, Yair, and shalom to you from the beautiful studio here in Jerusalem, the TBN studio overlooking this beautiful city of Jerusalem. Today we have a special guest, a friend of Israel, Mr. Mike Gallagher. Mike Gallagher is a famous host on Salem Broadcasting, on Salem Radio Network. Shalom, and thank you for coming all the way to Israel in such a time like that.
Shalom. It's an honor to be here and be with you, and these studios are so magnificent. It's a joy to have this incredible view. I've broadcast my show from here over the years, and it was actually in these studios, and when the first time we walked in, we said, wow, it's a rare TV studio where it's not a fake background. This is a real background.
Exactly.
And so it's an honor to be here.
Mike, I really believe that sometimes Israel is very strong in military and we win wars and so on. But when it comes to media, we are not doing the best job. I'm not talking about the TBN, I'm talking about the nation of Israel. So seeing people like you, famous networks like yours, Salem Broadcasting, coming to Israel and standing with Israel and bringing your perspective on what's going on, I want to use this opportunity to say thank you. Mike, can you tell us about your journey in Salem Broadcasting or your journey at all in the media?
I've been doing this for over 40 years. You know, I have a network show on over 400 radio stations around the country, and I'm also air live on Salem News Channel, which is our over-the-top streaming platform as well. I was a former Fox News Channel contributor for about a dozen years.
Wow.
And have just been a lifelong broadcaster. Of all the things that I've gotten to experience, I've interviewed 3 American presidents, both Bushes and, of course, President Trump on a number of occasions, gotten to travel the world, have experienced highlights. Nothing is as meaningful as coming to Israel.
Wow, thank you.
It just means everything to me because I'm aware.
Why?
Well,
Why?
because I'm aware of the media breakdown in terms of not conveying to the American people how crucial it is to stand with Israel, especially at a time like now. This is my 11th journey to Israel over the years.
You have 7 million listeners. How do you balance between faith and media?
Well, I work for a company that is fine with me professing my faith whenever I feel like it on my show. Now, I'm a political commentator. We talk about Trump and Democrats, Republicans, and left versus right, not unlike a lot of the challenges that you have here in Israel. But Salem Media is fine with me being allowed to profess my faith and my love for Israel. Look, this is a very pro-Israel audience that I have. We understand it. However, there's more work to be done. There's a lot of things about the relationship between the United States and Israel that a host like me should lean into and should illustrate for the audience. There's a lot of misinformation about Israel, a lot of conspiracy theories, plenty of strong opinions about Prime Minister Netanyahu and the war. And so, look, I see my role as being one of clarity and one of love for Israel, because the United States and Israel are aligned spiritually, geographically, demographically, every way possible.
Let's talk about those who don't agree with you. How do you deal with the challenge?
I am a conservative, Christian, Trump-supporting Republican, and I express those views rigorously, but I also invite dissent. In fact, if I have 8 callers on hold and one of the 8 wants to disagree with me, that's the caller I want to take on my show.
Can you give us a story?
Sure. There's plenty of people who I think have unwittingly embraced anti-Semitism, and they've cloaked it under the guise of caring and concern for the Palestinians.
Let's be honest, on the West Coast, you see people, homeless people all over. You go to Seattle, Seattle is full of homeless. Here, America is sending millions or billions to Israel.
Correct.
How can you defend that?
For me, this comes down to a battle between good and evil. It's very difficult for me to understand how you negotiate with Hamas. I don't understand negotiating with people who want to eradicate you. However, Israel is in that position of having to do so. I come from the Reagan era where we don't negotiate with terrorists. Now that paradigm has changed. Young people, I think, again, unwittingly and unknowingly, embrace anti-Semitism without knowing it. They see the devastation in Gaza and they blame Israel. They say Israel is guilty of genocide. They don't understand what I saw in the months after October 7th when I came here and interviewed survivors and saw what they did. And it's up to me, with a platform with millions of people, to share what I've experienced over here, to tell the story of what it means to have a nation, a state of Israel that wants to survive. Just don't kill us, versus those who want to eradicate the state of Israel. And so I think you tell those stories on the air. I hope I'm a good storyteller. I hope I'm effective in the way I message. Then frankly, Samuel, it comes down to good versus evil. It's that simple. It's not complicated.
People don't see good against evil.
That's right.
They don't see the point that for you it's so clear.
Well, because I think young people in particular, Samuel, don't recognize what evil is.
I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sure.
Can you defend the cause of Israel to young people watching us all over the world?
Israel, biblically, spiritually, historically, is a beacon of hope, of inspiration to the world. This is a tiny place that is surrounded by hostile actors. This is a nation that it has defied all the odds, but it's scriptural. We understand, and the Bible foretold what has happened with Israel, and you can connect those dots. Again, it's up to us to tell those stories. Everything the left hates about the United States, they hate about Israel. They don't like a free expression of ideas. They don't like morality. They're anti-traditional family. All the things that most, I think, normal people cherish, a lot of people on the far left resent. And so it's up to us to explain the virtues of Israel, the strength of Israel, the resolve of the Israeli people, and the goodness of Israel. Of all the travels, and I've gone all over the world, I'm never treated more kinder than I am from people here. There's a loving generosity of spirit that is hard to find anywhere in the world.
Mike, without mentioning names, we start hearing here in Israel that people on the right have second thoughts about Israel.
Sure.
Can you comment on that?
I can. President Trump introduced an America First agenda. MAGA, Make America Great Again, which is, of course, is the whole DNA of the Trump doctrine, is all about America First, America First, America First. And so there are conservatives, there are colleagues, in fact, people I know and friends who have cooled a little bit on the idea of supporting Israel, which is heartbreaking, because now more than ever we need to see a support for Israel that that defines who we are as a people. But I understand it, because if you're America First, you say, look, Israel's wonderful, but we don't need to spend billions of dollars.
Exactly. We have enough problems.
We have problems in the United States. And I do recognize it. That's why we've got to step up our efforts and explain why Israel needs us more than ever. Look, the explosion of anti-Semitism that we've witnessed on American college campuses should be an absolute clarion call for anybody who sees this battle between good and evil. I watched college kids pull down flyers of the hostages from light poles in New York City, and had no problem doing so, and didn't mind being exposed. The anti-Semitism now that we're seeing is in our face. It used to be subtle, not anymore. And so that should be a wake-up call. And it's also a cheap shot. It's also an easy out to say, oh, let Israel fend for itself. And look, as Israel falls, so do we. We're not going to let that happen. And thankfully, I think Israel has one of the best friends in the White House that Israel has ever experienced. I've been blown away by all the support for Donald Trump that I've witnessed this week.
No doubt, and it's a great opportunity to say thank you, the President of America, for dedicating so much of his time to bring peace to the Middle East.
And I've had a chance, if I may, to speak with President Trump personally about his his love and support for Israel.
Really?
He and Benjamin Netanyahu have a very interesting relationship,
Yes.
to say the least. But they are great allies, and I think they're very strong leaders. They're both very, very powerful leaders and very effective leaders. But look, make no mistake, President Trump has a deep love
And we
respect.
saw it
You
when
bet.
he came to the Knesset not long ago here in Jerusalem.
Correct.
I had the opportunity to be there. He announced a ceasefire, he announced that we're going to have peace, and I believe that we're going towards the Abraham Accord and all that. But something else happened on the 7th of October. We managed to win the war on the ground.
Right.
I'm not sure that Israel have a solution for anti-Semitism.
I agree with you because I believe October 7th unleashed that anti-Semitism at Columbia University in New York,
All
at
over.
Yale, all over the world.
Look at Europe.
Look at Europe right now. But in the United States, it was appalling to me to witness people waving Hamas flags in the streets of America. October 7th was your 9/11. Everything got changed in America after 9/11. There was pre-9/11, post 9/11. Same thing for you with October 7th. I don't think a lot of Americans appreciate the enormity of what happened that day, the barbarism, the cruelty. I saw the video the select video that not a lot of people got to see, and I watched the euphoria that the terrorists had in slaughtering innocent men, women, and children. Again, it's up to folks like me to share that with the audience so they understand the true nature of the depravity and they can recognize what evil looks like, because it's the personification of evil.
You mentioned that for you as a Bible believer, Israel plays a role as a Christian man and so on. Even that is being debated now.
Understand that today the sky is up and the ground is down is debatable. Everything now gets challenged because of the explosion of social media, the internet.
Do you think Israel has to be worried about that?
They should absolutely be concerned, and that's why Israel needs to continue to tell the truth and to deliver the message to the world, and it does so through broadcasters like me. The more people that can come over to Israel from the United States or from Europe or whatever, the better, because we've got to tell the truth back home to our audience. I take this responsibility very seriously. There's a spiritual purpose for the 11 times that I've been here to talk to my audience about what Israel represents.
There are Christian people and non-Christians watching us from all over the world. You're sitting here in Jerusalem. You know the situation. Do you have a message from Jerusalem to the world?
There is nothing like traveling to Israel and experiencing what we get to experience. This week, I've been to the Garden of Gethsemane, which is my absolute favorite spot. There, for some reason, there's a peace.
It's a very powerful place.
There's a serenity that comes over me knowing, from my perspective as a Christian, what Jesus experienced in that place. We went to the Garden Tomb. We went to the Mount of Olives to walk where Jesus walked.
Did you feel safe?
Completely safe. I feel
because people are watching and say, yeah, we want to go to Israel. It's a dream of our life, but Israel is not safe.
Look, I feel a lot safer here than I do in Midtown Manhattan on a Saturday night. It is a welcoming place. It is a spiritual place, and it changes you. I mean, it's been 11 times, but I feel like this is the first time for me to again walk the Via Dolorosa and walk where Jesus walked with the cross. It's the most important destination of my life.
Wow.
And it just means the world to be here again, and I'm glad to be here on behalf of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. They sponsored my broadcast here. We're dear friends with Yael Eckstein and the work that they do at the fellowship. We appreciate, this ministry of Christians and Jews coming together to help those in need here in Israel.
Mike, they call you the happy conservative warrior.
Yes, sir.
Why?
Well, because I'm a conservative. I just don't have to be angry about it. I don't want to paraphrase other politicians who've said that. I love what I do. I feel eternally blessed to be able to do this for a living. I wake up every day with a show that I want to get off my chest. I like to call myself the vice president of the Happy to Be Here Club because I am truly very, very happy to be here and grateful that I get to do what I do for a living.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to our show. Thank you for standing with Israel. And to you, our friends, be a voice. Stand for the truth. First of all, the truth of the gospel. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem and a warm, warm shalom. Back to you, Yair.
So guys, thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching TBN Israel. Thank you for standing with the truth of what's happening in this land. If you love these reports, make sure to hit the subscribe button, send this video to somebody, that needs to know what's happening here, and keep praying. Remember, this is a spiritual war. We need you to pray for the situation. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and pray for the people of Iran. Right now, they need us very, very badly.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.